I'm back.
Bring him back in.
I'm back.
So, because of those legalities, each division or organization sometimes has to operate differently. That's just an expansion of what I said earlier. But
so it almost seems like it's beneficial to have or to invest into an individual or a team that can go grant chasing to increase potential revenue to do a little bit more. Because that is a tedious task.
There may be some there's restrictions on who can get grants, and if you take in a certain amount of money through a certain way, that you're not allowed to apply for different grants. That's a whole rabbit hole. It would take a whole podcast to go through, to be honest with you. When you start talking about grant money, it's got so many things that are tied to even applying for the grant. But I thought Kevin's next question here was a nice one. What types of things can we look forward to at convention this year? What can be said to a new installer that's never been to convention to entice him to go?
Like I said earlier when we first signed on, I've been at 29 of the last 30. And there's certainly a reason I go every year. And for me, it's kind of like a shot in the arm. You always talk about the dog days of the summer, and people that work in the commercial field and that do education probably really understand what I'm talking about. By the time you're done with your summer workload, you're pretty much exhausted. Going to convention has always kind of re-energized me. It always kind of recenters me and gets me back to feeling good about what I'm doing. And being around so many like-minded people and feeding off their energy as well is something that I think is unique to our convention.
Yeah, so and the convention now is also
anything else, camaraderie and the opportunity to network is a reason to go.
When I first knew about CFI and CFI convention, I was literally an artist in an art department doing banners and shipping things off to a tabletop trade show. We used to show up at the at the convention, do just the trade show part, and then come home. We, as a company, Roberts totally was missing the value of being able to connect with the installers. Ralph Richens was really the one that opened my eyes up to that and said, yeah, I stay for the whole thing because the trade show part isn't even a little bit the important part of it. The important part is meeting the members and networking and understanding who this family is. I didn't really get what he was saying until I personally went and stayed for longer than just the trade show. And that really opened my eyes to what CFI was all about and who's behind that CFI logo, the face and the people and the family. So,
yeah. And at the same time, the organization, I think across the board needs to grow.
Yeah.
So you have this volunteer family kind of atmosphere, but we cannot deny that you lose a little bit of that as you grow. And I don't know anybody who could argue that it has to grow. There's not enough. I'm speaking as a flooring and company. Rod's laughing at me. We need more guys, more installers, more. I'd say
people, not guys. It could be women.
Well, it's certainly women, and the women that I talk to love being called one of the guys sometimes. So I never had a problem there.
Some of them prefer it.
That's right. But
I call
it's like guy. The organization's going to have to grow, and people. This is just my opinion. As we grew as a company, and as Go Carrera grew, and we're going through a rebrand into Trade Tap. The fact is that to grow, you lose a little bit of what you were originally. And I'm not saying that you can't keep the essence of what it was originally and maintain that installer by installer, for installer, and still grow. But you do have to realize things change with growth. That's just that's Paul's
And I think that's what
chatter.
the question kind of got at. Do you think that it's sustainable long term to have just a volunteer culture, or at some point is it going to have to kind of change to where you have to start paying a little bit more to some of these people in order to get the return or see the people come out that you want?
All I can say is that I would hope not. I would hope that our culture is sustainable, and that people will continue to volunteer their time, because it's really about what you get back. I know everybody on this call right now has volunteered your time to do something, whether it's coach youth sports. I know at least 2 guys here that do that, or going out and help with the training. You haven't done it for the money that you make, because frankly, there isn't that much money in training. You do it for the passion that you have for the kids or for the people that you're trying to teach. And as long as that rests somewhere inside our chest, I think we'll be able to continue to sustain it. Now, is there going to be a different balance at some point in time? Do you maybe have to have a few more staff members to pick up as growth occurs? Absolutely. You got to have plans for that.
Well, and the chapters kind of play with this well too. I mean, you can grow and then keep a real, intimate kind of setting because of chapters too. So kudos to 12 chapters there, Roland.
You just get things going on with the chapters to keep that family feel. But as far as Kevin's the value at the convention, I think the growth of having more vendors there that they can come in and meet, and more trainings and more educational things. So I think there's a lot that you can tell an installer who's never went, besides, hey, we're family, because they might not quite understand that as much as we do. They have to go there at least once before they get that feeling. But we have so much going on with the educational events, the vendors, and everything else to give them a good showing if they came.
Roland, you just said something too that I want to kind of expand on, or have you guys expand on. And you said family. Now, looking back at some of the notes and some of the questions and comments that we've had over, dozens of episodes, it's good old boys, brotherhood. There's been a lot of other terms that have been tossed around. Can you explain some of that and what maybe the misconception is? Because I will say, when I went there, it wasn't anything like it was explained to me. And I did meet a lot of phenomenal people there, and I still continue to stay in contact with as many as possible year to year, whether it's through the podcast or over the phone.
Well, I call it, I guess I said boys, but just people. I'm right now in the process of being going to donate. I'm donating a part of the product. The manufacturer's donating part of the product, and our chapter is going to donate the labor up here in Pennsylvania at a place. And I'm going to be calling our chapter guys, and like we've done so many times, and we're going to head up there. It's going to be 1,600 square feet, and I know they got my back. I committed them to them, and they got my back. And so to me, that's that good old boy club, I guess, or the family together. They're all installers somewhere else, making money, but they're willing to take that day. This will probably be a day and a half to come in, representing CFI, representing our chapter, to go up and put this flooring in. And so that, that's what the CFI is. When I did the shows that you helped me on, who came to all these shows and helped do those shows? It was CFI guys and people. And I called Crystal a guy now because she helped us on some, and Jen did. And they helped around the country, all over the country. And Robert Irvine was just blown. His mind was blown that people would come and help somebody from different parts of the country. he couldn't believe it. So that's the Good Old Boys Club that we have with CFI.
And if people are using Good Old Boys Club in a negative, back in the day, that's who the installers were, the Good Old Boys. Today, that's not who the installers are, and that's not what CFI reflects. If you look just at the advisory board, we've got people that have been around for several years. We've got Hispanics, we've got young people, we've got women. I think our current advisory board really represents the industry and who CFI is. So, I think the Good Old Boy Network is not. It's not an accurate description of who we are today.
So just to
Well,
clarify,
I think
it's not an exclusive club.
No.
Like the misconception.
It's just who the installers used to be.
A group of installers who got together and are more than willing to help each other out.
I was welcomed with open arms. I know
So
that.
was I.
So some believe that the marketing should come from the members because they live, eat, and breathe CFI, know what is going on in the industry. The bottom line there is that as you got to kind of have some confluence, and marketing is not even being, if you're a great installer, and I'll let you guys answer this, but just my thoughts is being a great installer doesn't mean you're great at marketing. Marketing, there's companies that pay very high dollar for marketing professionals, and almost all big companies have a complete expensive marketing campaigns. It's because it's a whole art within itself. Us installers should really focus on being the best installers we can. That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and really, Elaine, I think you were the one that asked that. I personally have not had any super in-depth discussions with Farida. If we wanted to get on a call with her to talk through some of the marketing strategies, I'm sure she would take that call. We can talk through that. That's not a no. It's just a let's do this together.
Let me say this. I think.
Well, I don't know. I market CFI every day. I go out and do my job. I go out and represent CFI and NFIC every day that I'm working and promote it. So the simple thing of that is can go a long ways.
Yeah.
You don't always have to be.
But I think what Elena is talking about is something.
Yeah, I know what she's talking about. I'm just saying we can.
I mean, if
she
it's
wants
flyers
to
and shirts and all that kind of stuff, let's talk through that. But if you're sitting there talking about being, what it means to be certified, and you do not have the brochure or the flyer that you need, call somebody, ask somebody. Maybe it exists.
She says just because you have a degree in marketing doesn't mean you know how to market. And I would say that's pretty much across the board in a lot of
the problem is
industries.
It can be flipped too. Just because you have Photoshop doesn't mean you should be doing marketing. So it goes both ways.
Well, and I think that you don't have to lose to marketing. So I appreciate your, offer. I mean, that if nothing else, that shows how the organization is kind of like, oh, you got a suggestion, let me hear it, and let's talk to Farida. I mean, so it's open that direction. I hope that it's kind of clarified some of that too, because I've heard Rod say before, and what you just indicated, Leslie, is if you want to discuss these things, give one of you four, a call and say, hey, could I talk to you about the marketing? Also, you have, there was a reply to that comment that they have, everybody has internet and social media and marketing. If you have talent there, I think that you're probably free to market yourself and your talents and the fact that you're CFI all you want.
Yeah,
Let
absolutely.
me add one point real quick. And I wanted to respond. Jeremy had made a comment about not really having the time to be able to take off work and get more involved. And my suggestion would be, if there is a chapter in your area, that's a good place to start. If there's not one, consider forming one.
And that's where, you said that people volunteer their time for sports, right? And that's what, if he wanted to set that up, that's what he could do is, hey, I'm not, instead of dedicating my volunteer time to sports, I'm going to set up this chapter over here and get a group of people together.
Yeah. But I
That's
will
a
tell
fair
you, the
point.
chapters are also a good way to market yourself. There's a lot of connectivity in the marketplace. We have our chapter meetings oftentimes at distributors, and we'll invite retailers to come in. And no, they're not there to shop to find their next generation of installers, but that doesn't mean that connections aren't made. We don't promote it. We don't intend for it to be that vehicle. That is supposed to be sanctum. You're not supposed to do any recruiting at a chapter meeting, and I'm not suggesting that you should. But as an installer, take note of who shows up at those chapter meetings. Those are the people that are interested in supporting quality installation. If you're not with the group now that you feel that they're supporting you in the right way, there's other options out there.
Right.
Wow.
And there's actually, we had an email that said about supporting installers and stuff. So is there any initiative to get the WFCA members to pay their certified installers more, since they are under the same, CFI falls under their umbrella? Like, are we talking to the WFCA about, hey, if someone is certified, are they getting
I
paid
think
more?
one of the other questions was also, are the retailers in the WFCA it was stated that they're not, but I don't know. Why are they not requiring their installers to be CFI? That's a big organization with a lot of retailers. Why are they not, not requiring? I don't know the relationship there, or can't read into that question anymore. But essentially, why are the WFCA members themselves not saying, hey, if you're going to work here, you're going to be CFI trained?
Well, let me verify that for you. WFCA membership is not taking as big an advantage of CFI as they should. I make a joke of it, but really it's serious business to me. Every board meeting I go to, they all know before I leave there, I'm going to bring it up, right? Guys, how many of you have hosted a training? How many of you sent an installer to a certification in the past year? And I get a few hands, but not near as many as you'd like to see. I don't know what it's going to take, because I don't think it's unique to WFTA. We shouldn't be pointing the finger at them. I think it's the
Well, there's an obvious reason, not to interrupt. There's an obvious reason the fingers pointed at them. It's because they own they're the ahead of the umbrella.
Right.
So yeah, that could be said for any.
But I'm just saying it's
large thing. But that's why I
whole.
think that it's pointed that direction.
Yeah,
But you also have to realize that even just having this conversation right here, right now, gives Rod the advantage of going and saying, look, it's being noticed that you guys aren't taking advantage of it. So even this discussion is good.
Well, here, I'm going to add something to that. I challenge the WFCA to incentivize retailers to use certified installers for their projects. Come up with a program that benefits a retailer if they were to use certified installers. In turn, it'll benefit the installers who are investing their time and their money into higher education, into continuing education.
Let me pose a question for you guys. What I'd love to see you do is invite people from all the different organizations, whether it be WFCA. I'm a Fuse member, so I'll throw Jeff Gordon in there. He'll appreciate the fact I'm calling him out. But Starnet, USA Floors, FCICA. I'm naming commercial organizations. There are others on the residential side. Why don't you guys invite them in and ask them why they're not supporting training? Seriously,
Sounds like there's an issue across the board.
Hear what the issues are, because I've spent almost 30 years as a part of CFI trying to figure that one out. And every time I find out I'm not as close as I thought I was.
Rod, are you saying that there's gonna have to be a part 2 to this, where we do bring in those people and start asking them the questions that we're asking you guys as well? How do we get this under a collaborative?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, sounds good to me, Daniel. Let's bring them in. We'll jump in with you.
All right.
You know, because CFI has been asking that question to the manufacturer since Jim started it. He used to go to the manufacturer, you know, constantly and go walk in there saying, you need to have support certification. So this is not something new. It's not something that hasn't been done. It's not something haven't been working on. You know, I mean, we agree with that question ourselves 100%. You know, when I get called in to go fix a job or do a job start, why should I even been there? You guys should have been trained before, so I didn't have to come in there.
If you'll give me a second, I'll go get my soapbox before I get started on this next rant.
No, I think this is.
We all know this is an industry problem. It doesn't rest with the manufacturing community. It doesn't rest with commercial contractors or retailers. We all need to share responsibility if we're going to ever accomplish what we set out to, and that is to create a more professional workforce. And
yeah, well, one of the
associations out there that can participate.
I think up until this point, it's never been brought to the attention like we are now, though, right? It's always been talked about behind closed doors, and only certain groups have been there to listen in on it. And once you bring it to the public's attention, maybe this is going to start those conversations, so that way we can finally start getting somewhere with it. But it's, how are we going to do that? Like Dave said, it sounds like a live convention roundtable.
Yeah, well, it's got to be multiple levels. Like Rod was just saying, you got manufacturers, but you also have the industry associations like your Fuse and your WFCAs and your StarNets and your, again, I'm listing mostly commercial places, but then from there, the dealers have to participate, and you got to create the demand that got faded away when subcontracting became such a major piece of our industry back in the, early 90s, when that really happened. And I've talked about this situation on this podcast multiple times, but when that happened, that is when the companies lost control of sending installers to training, because they were their employees, to having to rely on subcontractors to go get their training on their own. That's a dynamic that's tough to overcome, but the demand's going to have to come all the way through the industry, not just on one level, whether it's manufacturer. I mean, even we talked earlier, architects in the commercial world being involved with quality assurance portion of the specs, recommending or requiring certification of some level or some type of validation of skill, and then the manufacturers and the dealers and all the way through.
Agreed.
Speaking on the subject, we need to make sure that if the WFCA is not having their own installers be certified, then they should not be part of the executive board. Good luck with that.
Yeah, gotta love it.
Yeah, good luck with that. yeah. Or hey, we can't agree with you more, but
well, maybe WSCA will. We can engage in some conversations with the members there. It'd be awesome to have like Fuse with 6 or 7 Fuse members, StarNet with 6 or 7 StarNet members, or 10 or 15. I don't care. And ask, where is the pitfall, or where is the hurdle that's keeping that from happening?
I think you guys should put this on the road and just go to all these different conventions and do the show live.
we do. Hey, we are, I believe, doing a live podcast at Tice this year. So
I know it was a plug. It was kind of shameless, but
thank you.
whatever. That's okay.
I think it's
Well-
just we just it's easier to lead the conversation when you have a platform to put it on, right? And it just so happens that we'd like to be that platform. So I appreciate everyone for coming on here and sharing everything. There is a comment that we did get a few times in email as well. I'm gonna look for it. This right here. So, what is being done to set up more training and certifications? And then this kind of ties into what Elena said earlier about, I think it was Elena, it might have been Denise or someone, but kind of that where we brought in the FCEF, but we know that they're separate now because we see a lot of things happening on the beginner side, but how are we going to pull more of the people that have been in it for a while to get certified when there's not those things that are scheduled?
Well, it's interesting, Roland. Let me get to you in a sec. It's interesting that the federal government tracks unemployment on two levels: the unemployed and the underemployed. Training is a little like that. We not only don't have enough installers in the industry, but we got too many that are undertrained, that really don't have the level of training they need. One of the worst things that could happen in this industry is also maybe one of the best. LFT, luxury vinyl tile, come along, right? And it became an easy application for the installers. I don't know a guy that doesn't love installing it. They make very good money. They high volume. They can get it down fast. They're making money doing it. That's great. But it doesn't take the average installer a lot of experience to get to the point where they're comfortable with it. I'm not suggesting that they know everything they need to know, but they get real comfortable very quickly on installing LVT. The problem is as you're moving forward, that doesn't encourage them to grow.
Well, it's the old carpet tile problem. How many broadloom guys do you have?
That's right.
Yeah. Now?
Yeah.
And then a big one that I think we should touch on is, what about refresher courses to maintain your CFI status instead of just paying your dues? Like continuing education. And it doesn't have to be hands-on all the time, right?
Well, one
So
time there was
CEUs to
a
maintain your
continuing
membership
education
as
portion.
opposed to dues?
Well, not as opposed to dues. Like you still have to
Or-
pay your dues, right? It's a
Well,
you have to get that money in.
Armstrong used to.
Go ahead.
Armstrong had that up until they shut theirs down. That every 5 years you had to go on and take pay $50 and take a written test, just to review, to keep up with all their new products and their new glues and their new methods and new backings. So you had to do it once every 5 years. So not saying that wouldn't be a bad idea, I guess. But it'd be something that had to be really looked at.
Right. And so just take moisture testing, for instance. You have to get certified, and then after 4 years, you have to take the written test, and then after another 4 years, you have to do the entire course again. Yeah. So is there going to be, I guess, can there be conversations of something like that rather than just pay your dues and then you're good for life?
Well, we've always had a philosophy that once CFI, always CFI, that we would never pull your certification for not paying your dues or for not keeping up. But I will tell you that there has been some discussions in the past to put a date on your certificate card so that people could identify the last time you went through training. And I do think that that's something you'll be seeing in the near future. We've had quite a bit of discussion about it.
Well, and with all of the updates to all the floorings and how fast the different types of floorings are changing, it would be beneficial to do that. Several years ago, I don't think flooring changed as quickly and dramatically as it is right now. So I think it's a different day and age, and we should look at that, yes. I think the other thing to kind of circle back around to the original question is one of the things we are doing for training and certification is we really need to educate people on why they want to host trainings and certifications. And we've put together a flyer that people can use at distributors. People can understand what they need to do in order to host or to coordinate a training. Because a lot of people don't know that they can set one up themselves. They don't know how to start to do that. So we put together a flyer that we can make available to anyone that needs it, that kind of just gives a basic of how much space you need, how much time do you need, how to coordinate the date, who to call if you have questions. We just completed that a couple weeks ago, and we can get that out to anybody that's interested. But really, we just need to educate people on why they should host a training or why they should get their local distributor involved as well.
Yeah, I think that may be one of the drawbacks to CFI is, but we're like we said, we're running on volunteer status, right? But sometimes it's easier to just have things set up and you show up than it is to, like, even if you're the instructor, right? But there's a little bit more work there. But how can we get things so that way they're just set up and you don't have to really necessarily worry about something like that? Someone says here, I can't find it now, but that's kind of what they were saying was, like, the person that's putting on the certification, do they have to pay for everything, or is that something that CFI provides as far as the materials for the boxes and everything?
No, once we put on a certification, we provide everything that you need.
Well, I take it, we have to expand on that. We take care of all the tools, the boxes, all that stuff. We ask for the space, and then we ask for if they would host lunch. No, they don't. Then usually the guys go out and the people go out and eat on their own. But we don't supply the lunches. Usually the host does that. So there's going to be a cost to the person who's hosting it. Some.
Right, and that's why you got to have these, talk to the retailers, talk to the distributors to try and get these costs offset, right? The retailers need these guys. The distributors want to help out any way they can. So why not just reach out and see what can be sponsored?
Well, and there again, when it comes to material, I know the last 3 that I've done, when John talked to them and Jen setting it up, they talked to him about the material, and each one said, well, let me take care of that. And they called the manufacturer and said, hey, I'm hosting a training. I need this material. And the manufacturer shipped it into them. I've had ones that said, hey, I stock items and you have this kind of stuff, this much of stock, I'll let you use. So if we can utilize that, we're going to do that. I mean, without hesitation. But if they can't, we're still not going to not do it. CFI is going to get it shipped in.
Okay. And then is there any, like, going back to it'd be easier if this was set up for us, is there anyone in the office whose job is setting up, scheduling and events and trainings, or is that just based on
No, Jen does that full time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question that came across, and this has come across a couple of times.
Yeah, Dan really wants this question answered.
The NFIC is, why isn't it incorporated with the other acquisitions or not being advertised? Is the NFIC just absorbed in the CFI training? It was talked about earlier. One of the previous comments was that the NFIC didn't have a logo change. Or was not part of that.
Yes, it did.
And I think that was this misconception maybe. But is so it is incorporated with the other acquisitions. It got a logo change. It got a refresher. Is that correct?
It did get a refresher, but it is not being absorbed into CFI. It is a standalone entity within WFCA, and yeah, it's separate.
NFIC is NFIC.
And it'll be continue to be known as NFIC. Is that correct?
It will be. It's being administered by CFI, meaning we're handling the clerical portion of it. But NFIC has its own committee, and they're setting up their own trainings.
So Alan says that we need to have things in the flyer, who supplies what for each training or cert, so that way people know how to sell the training when they're going to places.
Alan, that flyer already exists.
Yeah, it's already in the
flyer.
flyer.
Why you haven't seen it, but please reach out to us later and we'll get it to you.
All right, so I do want to go ahead, Paul.
No, I was going to say, go ahead and tell us a little bit about what Alan's asking and what the flyer is.
Well, there's actually several flyers. The one that Leslie was just referring to is a quick step-by-step instruction on how to, literally from the point of conception, hey, I want to have a training. How do I go about doing that? There is a perception out there that it's harder than it really is. And I think that's just simply because not having done it, it looks monumental, and it really isn't that big a deal. So one of the things to try and lessen the load and to try and make it a little bit easier is we establish a mentoring program within that step. So when you reach out and say, hey, you contact the national office, you talk to John or Jane, and you say, I want to host an event. I'm considering hosting an event. They, and then in turn, will contact one of us that are on the mentoring committee saying, reach out and talk to Sally down here in Chattanooga who wants to have an event. And then we'll help guide them through that process. Now, in terms of the other flyer that Alan was referring to is, I think Roland had described earlier, is that we actually lay out, here are the things that you must have. This is how much space you need to be able to host a training in your facility. Here's how much electricity you need to have available. That is all laid out step by step.
Gotcha.
Okay.
How much longer is it going to be before training and certifications go digital, utilizing AI platforms? Essentially, everything is in person, but via a live stream of some sort.
Well, obviously, the hands-on is always going to have to be done live. Have we toyed with and talked about a digital format for the education side where people could sign on and do some of the preliminary work? Yeah, we have. We've talked quite a bit about it. In fact, creating a digital platform, as I'm sure Paul could tell us all, is not cheap. It's a pretty sizable venture. And so it's something that we've talked about, but we haven't budgeted for yet. We're still in the stage where we're trying to figure out how to make that fit. And to make
there's definitely been some discussions around how, to leverage technology to lighten the load on the training and focus on the part that still has to be physical, which is the hand skills. So it looks, who is setting up the NFIC trainings? Is that the same process as you described earlier?
Yeah, it is. And we've had answers real quick telling them to set one up. Anybody can set up a training. I mean, it's open. You just, there again, then you do what Rod said, call the headquarters. They can call one of us mentors.
And that includes
to help them
NFIC.
guide
So just, I think that was a specific question to that one.
Yeah, that includes NFIC. So let's say, Paul, you wanted to put an NFIC up your area. All right. You start getting it lined up. You make a call to headquarters. John or Jen will then get all your information, and then they'll pass it on to one of the mentors, and pass it on to Kevin Keith. He's one on the board, pass it to Rod, pass it to me, and then we'll start working with you, getting it lined up. So it's not anybody who wants to can set up a training, and that goes with NFIC and CFI.
I think in today's world, having some of these things capable digitally are going to, and I know that CFI is looking at some of that stuff, could be a huge help, because people are used to signing up for things online and doing those types of deals online. And the more you can create that scenario in today's world, the better you are.
So now I want to kind of go, because we've gotten quite a few questions about convention, right? So CFI convention is seen as valuable, but also expensive. What's being done to make it more accessible to working installers?
Well, first off, we've moved it. It's not going to be in Orlando this year. It's going to be in Nashville, more central to where people.
But also the price went up.
Well, travel hopefully has gone down. How much did that? You know what? And I apologize. I don't even know how much it went up. Let me look that up.
I think it went up $100 or something.
Yeah, $100.
$100?
Yeah.
So obviously the convention has been a good tool for getting people acclimated with CFI. Many people, even on this panel, stated that they went to a convention and that was the clicker. So, are there ways, or I think that the essence of that question is like, it's expensive and I'm taking off work to go to the convention. What is CFI doing to kind of make
John
that
says it only went up 30, so my apologies.
Well, I mean, so this is kind of a double-edged sword, right? As CFI, as we are scheduling things for CFI, we want to make sure that there's speakers that people want to hear from. We want to make sure that the programs are something that are educational. We need to make sure that people taking off work and traveling here are going to get something that is worth their money. We can cut a lot of costs, but then what are the installers really getting from it?
Right, because that's one of the questions too, is
classes aren't there.
One of the questions is, what's the ROI for someone attending convention, right? What are we talking about here? And you kind of touched on that as far as the education aspect, and I can attest to that because I've been to a few of them, and yeah, you're going from class to class learning all day, and it doesn't sound
Constantly.
fun, but
when
you're a floor nerd, that's what you want to do.
Yes. I will tell you that, the biggest impact to the cost of convention isn't probably what most people recognize. It's the cost of food.
Yeah.
Believe it or not.
Everything's went up. So I think
I don't know how hard that team worked to try and keep the cost down this year, and that's the best they could really do, was just a modest increase, because food expenses went up 30% in the last 12 months. Well, if you looked at that in terms of what we paid last year at Rose and Shingle Creek, and by the way, I love that facility. I just don't want to go there every year.
Yeah.
But
I mean, just look at the price of eggs. Like, not even just conventions, just you going to the grocery store to buy eggs. Everything went up.
So when we're looking for a location, we were very conscious of the fact that we had to look at it in terms of where can we be more centralized to the membership, because driving in is substantially cheaper than flying in.
Right. So Scott brings up a point right here where he says, is there any way that if you attend convention, your dues are covered for the year rather than having to pay dues and then still pay everything for convention?
Well, and the reality of it is you could blend the rate. You're probably still going to end up paying the same amount of money, guys. I'm not going to. Could we increase the cost of convention by $100 and offer you your dues to be paid? Sure, anything's possible, but the bottom line is that the dollar amount would work out to be much the same. Now, I'm speaking for myself, not for the organization in this moment. We've never really investigated that. And with joint convention with FCEF, it would be a little bit more complicated because of the way the dollars get divvied up at the end of the whole process. But could it be done? We can look into it.
Well, a version of that is done in other organizations, which is you bring in 3 CFI members, new members, and your dues are paid for the year, or this type of thing.
Yeah.
So getting more involved, and I don't know where that lands with if that is possible, but you're bringing value, and therefore you earn many companies do that, right? You bring in 2 or 3, whatever the number, new members, and that pays for your convention, something like that. And
some incentive, he says.
That would benefit both sides.
And we've thought about doing something similar with, can we offer a bigger discount to members that are taking the next level of classes to incentivize them to, all that is being looked at and studied. And I wish we could get to some of this stuff sooner and reach a conclusion on some of it quicker, but it really takes time to kind of map through things.
For sure.
Nate says that he was having issues registering, like paying dues and registering for convention have been problematic. Is all of that behind now? Have you guys heard of any issues that are coming up with people not able to or having issues with registering?
We had a very big problem. That's to say the least. We had a very big problem. We switched computer systems. And anybody that's ever gone through that nightmare where you try and integrate an old system with a new one can probably speak to just how complicated that becomes. What ended up happening is we lost some of the membership sign-in information. So when we converted to the new program, members couldn't sign in. That was for quite a period of time. That was unbeknownst to us. We didn't understand that process was going on. So yes, that has been taken care of. Anybody that's having problems, all they need to do is call into the office. We can set him up with the new sign-in information, and they're on and they're done. It's pretty quick and easy, but they will probably, if they can't sign on now, and we recaptured some of this, but if they still can't sign on, then just call into the office. We'll get you set up.
There's some chatter. There's 2 or 3 different comments about United Front and other locations of training. Does anybody, can other organizations set up trainings with CFI? That seems to be the question if I add them all together.
Anybody can set up a certification or a training with CFI.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was really the question, Paul. I'm trying to figure out what the intent was there.
Well, I can read the question directly because it came up. Does anybody even another training? I have a phenomenal training facility in Fort Worth, Texas. This is Robert Varden. Mm-hmm. Does anybody, even another organization, I would love to host a CFI event. That by itself, mixed with people stating great facility from what I can see, and yes, a united front on the training and education. So those are comments and questions. Is there, that's a odd question. Let me clear the air for a second. That's an odd question because it's another training entity essentially asking to or offering their facility to do a training of CFI. I think that would be, my opinion, quite odd. Although maybe having a little bit of unity for installers, I think that training entity can use the facility to do their trainings. So I am reading the questions. These aren't mine. Just to be
Right.
clear, I'm
Well,
trying to clarify as best as I can what the multiple responses to that are, and post
is
that
it
to the
is that
panel.
is that like Utseen and Arnex in the same place at the same time in the same room talking about the products that do the same things? I think that there's a line and a level of partnership that can be formed and understanding that can be formed across separate training entities because everyone has the same mission to some aspect, and that's to spread the word, to increase awareness and education. And to some extent, there has to be a line drawn, I know. But there's also got to be a level of acceptance saying we're both trying to better the industry.
So I'm going to jump in, and it is kind of an odd question because I don't think that Pepsi would ask Coca-Cola to come over and train in their facility. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about. And AFT is a great training organization, and there's several people that support both CFI and AFT, right? So it is a little bit weird because it's competition. Now, having said that, competition isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. You look at Roberts and Crane and Gunlock, we're all doing more and doing better because there is competition. And because of that competition, the installer is the one that's winning because we're coming out with better tools.
I think that's a good point. You always have to have competition, and the bottom line is that there can be some camaraderie without necessarily, like your Pepsi, Coca-Cola example. But I also, to be devil's advocate a little bit, don't want to have. I think people don't want to have this type of industry or training of installers be quite as like cutthroat as corporate America. So you take corporate America, Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Is there a way to not have that type of thing, but still understand they train their way, you train your way. There's
Well-
two different trainings, and you both have your own unique way of doing that. And so for it, it may be odd. Although the question was, I think, a little bit hard to answer. At the end of the day, it's also important that no one's it doesn't seem to me, and it hasn't came up until now, that there's any ill will going on. It's just probably not going to train our training at your training facility where you train your trainings. We both have our facilities, and we can cross. You can have installers that take both, and there's value in that. But that's my 2 cents of it. It's a difficult question to approach, actually.
Paul, I'd like to put in my 2 cents here for a second. Just in the last 2 months, I was one was here. I was putting on an LVP laminate certification. There was the one we had a full house on, and there was a gentleman here from a dealer, and he came up to me and said, "Oh," he says, "in 2 weeks, I'm going to be going up to New Hampshire. AFT is doing a 2-day the inspection class, and me and my owner are going up." And I said, "Great, go up. You're going to learn a lot of stuff." That's what we need to do in this industry. All right. I had a guy call me from out west and said, "I'd really like to come out to your training." He said, "I just can't afford it, and I can't take that long to travel, and I can't afford the airfare." He says, "But they're having one in Wichita." I said, "Go to it." I mean, that's what we need to be. you know, is you know good. Training is training. And like I don't know who said it earlier. Might have been Phillip. I went up to Pittsburgh and went through a training up there. I mean, there's nothing wrong, like Leslie said, with good competition or good things. It makes us better. You know, in my town, I have a store down the street, one of the biggest in town, been around for years. I tell people if they come in here, they're, well, we've been up to Peterson's. I said, good. You know, I'm going to show you what I can do, and I'm going to make my value what I can do to be. Hopefully, you buy from me. But if you bought from Peterson's, they're a good company. I know the owner; he's a real good person. And you don't lose sleep. You build each other up. So,
Right. So
Yeah. Well, I think
Robert
the bottom
says
line is,
Robert did say sorry. He didn't mean to throw a wrench in there. He loves CFI and don't see them as a competitor when there's been multiple comments that like this one saying that the only competition is the untrained installers. And when you look at it
right.
that way, that's exactly what it is. So it's not throwing a wrench in the call or anything. I mean, that's what we were here for, was for these types of questions and getting the answers. And now that's what we have, right? It's a separate thing. It's not saying that, hey, don't go over there and do that. It's just, I'm not gonna go into your building and teach my class when we have our building that they can come to.
yeah, I think that the bottom line is that there's plenty of guys that are out, guys and gals that are out there stating that they have, that they're installers and never have received any industry training whatsoever. That is who our biggest. That's the biggest audience we have as a co-joined people in the industry wanting to improve our industry in a big way. Is those guys, those guys and gals have got to. We don't have licensing. We don't have these restrictions like plumbers or electricians that you go to their house to measure up and they're like, well, I want to see that you're licensed and insured. They may ask for insurance, but there's no licensing in probably 99% of the US. So due to that, you fall back to it. Certification and training with these new people is imperative. We've talked at length in this podcast about how do you reach them, how do you get them, and I think some good ideas came from it about how to reach out to the retailer, continue to reaching the manufacturer. One thing's for sure, having a lot of people requesting the same thing will get more than one person asking that same thing. So the more we're vocal to the manufacturers and to the fuses and alliances of the world, maybe there's some meaningful change that can happen there from those conversations that this could start.
Well, I think that is the challenge, and I think we all identify very well with the fact that mentality you were speaking to, where people just don't see the value in training. I've told people for years, and I firmly believe this. You're a commercial installer. Give me 15 minutes. I can show you how to make more money. I really believe I really believe I can, and I've done it over and over again. So I'm pretty confident in that. That's where training pays for itself. But you gotta have and be able to afford to take the time off and go make the commitment and do all the things that are necessary to make that happen for yourself. And for some, it's too big a hurdle. It's too big.
Well, it's an investment. You got to look at it as an investment in
Yeah.
time. A lot of people invest their time, like was talked about earlier, with kids sports or a sports team or doing other things. It's really a value thing. Where do you value your professionalism and your ability to be expert at your job or at your service? That is really the whole piece. If you value it enough, you will make time for it. The industry at large, the problem is there's still there's never been a way and to really stamp that somebody is what are their skills and abilities, and homeowners desire it. We did
I
some
heard there was
research.
a program being developed to do that. Are you sure there isn't a way?
There is. Thank you, Rod. But everybody knows about Go Carrera and are soon to be a transition into Trade Tab, where these things are addressed. But that's the only chance. I think that getting the new installers in. I'm just going to do a quick recap. We're running on 2 hours and 20 minutes, but the differences between the entities in the under the WFCA umbrella allows for new people to come in through the WFC or through the FCEF,
FCEF.
hopefully get trained by CFI and start to mature in their years of experience and their knowledge through those trainings. So they should be very cohesive, thus the cohesive branding that's required. And none of us are I think we all have to take a step back sometimes and not be so critical and really look at where can I add value and where can I help to make it better, as opposed to where can I find fault and dig it down. That's just an overall statement based on all the questions,
Right.
all the comments and such, that where can we participate to build up the industry as a whole, and not always look at the things that we may see somebody do wrong and tear it down. It's a terrible way to parent. If you just look at your child and you only pick the bad things and you never tell them good job at that last at bat, son, or whatever it is. It's a terrible way to parent, and it's a terrible way to look at an organization that you're trying to grow and make a meaningful change in an industry. Like, let's band together. That type of unity is more important than anything. Band together, and let's find the positive in all these things, and try to really build up this industry together.
Right. So
Go forward, moving
Yeah.
forward too.
So Nate says
You're right.
business skills need to be added to certification, since we continue to lose installers to the tax man. And we're
Boom.
about 2.5 hours deep. So I kind of want to lead into some of these questions that we did get, and this kind of like what does success look like for CFI over the next 3 to 5 years, and is there a clear roadmap to get there?
Well, that's a great question. I will tell you that every year we sit down and review the goals for the upcoming year, as well as plan a strategy for the upcoming 3. We don't usually extend out 5 years, though certainly I know some organizations that do.
So what if I reframed it? What is the number one objective for CFI this year? And then what does it look like for the next 3? Is that better than the 3 to 5?
And yeah, but I'm gonna tell you that for me, it's a consistent approach. Okay, what does that mean? That means that once we establish our goals, we stay true to them, which means that you don't waver. You don't waver under the criticism of others that may not be well informed. You stay the path. You keep moving forward. So what I'm looking for, and I think we're on the right path, is strong leadership from the group that's sitting in front of you. I think if we possess that and deliver on that level, then the rest of what you're talking about is going to be pretty easy to achieve. Now, if you want a more direct answer, what's the most important thing to me? Most important thing to me is to try and create more value for the membership. It has been for a number of years. It's been the one thing I keep promoting over and over again. If you ask Paul, when he's attended on a regular basis, when he's attended, how many times he's heard me preach about value and how important I think it is to deliver value to the membership. Because, guys, this organization, we used to say you have to contribute to get something back. I still believe that is somewhat true. But the bottom line is you got to encourage contribution. You got to show them the value in the contribution. And so that, for me, is the number one goal.
So from an objective standpoint and like actual tangible things, we talked about, trying to make things a little bit easier to sign up, better marketing around how to start a training or host a training. Like some of these things, people just don't know. The effort has to be put in for people to understand how they can host their own training at their location or find a location and do that. The there's a lot of positive things that you guys have talked about in here that answered the question Daniel read off, and Daniel stated, that wasn't his question. He can't take credit for it. It's a question from the audience that was emailed in that wants to know, like, what are the actual objectives, and like, how is CFI going to move the ball forward in the industry? And you mentioned some of those with everything. The chapters are one. And I'm just recapping. So I'm not answering this question. I'm just recapping this 2 hours that we've talked about that answers the question. Chapters are one that are an objective that Roland's obviously gotten up to 12. Clarifying how to start and host a training is another. These are the things that came out through this, and if you want to add any more, I just was recapping things you have said that answered that question already.
Well,
really, it comes down to, the value add for membership is always part of our conversation, whether it's the executive board meeting or the entire advisory board. We're always talking about adding value, and we're always talking about how to make it easier to set up trainings. So those are two of our big initiatives. And we've done quite a bit of the flyers and the brochures, trying to get information out to the members to make it easier for them. And if we have not done a good enough job getting that information out to you guys, then we will make sure that is broadcast out so everybody has it. We've worked hard on those things.
Another thing is, just to be clear, is that annually there's an objective of putting on a world-class convention. So that's a big thing to pick up. Just throwing that out there, that
it's not easy.
Part of the answer to that is, like, every year putting on a world-class convention is a big lift. There's a lot to do to make that happen. So that's another objective that you guys, that came out through this, is it's every year you got to do it. I mean, that's awesome. So,
well, I think one of our other goals, well, not say other goals, added to the goals, is to give top-notch, first-class trainings and certifications. So keeping our up to date with the new products and the new methods out there, and having the trainers trained to train it properly. That's always on the top of our list, to make sure that we are the leader in this, and we're going to stay working to be the leader in this. So having you say about the chapters, but our goal is that each chapter area will be set up to be able to be self-contained, to hold the certifications and trainings, to make it easier for the installers, which there again is a value for the installers, that they don't have to travel as far and go as far. So that's stuff we're looking at, is how can we make more areas accessible for trainings? Because there's I hear all the time, well, when are you going to come to my area? When are you going to come to my area? And through chapters and local, we'll be able to do it better. So those are more goals that we have in line to do.
So I think to kind of close this out, it's at 2.5 hours now. Like, for those that want to get more involved in helping CFI, how do they get started? What are the first steps that they need to do in order to start?
Buy me my
Reach
coffee.
out, ask somebody. That's
Yeah,
all it takes. I'm talking about
honestly
reach
feel
out
like
to the
every,
advisory board, call the office.
So you got to say it
Right.
like you're talking to someone who does not know anyone
Right.
or anything.
so the advisory
Right,
board
you're
has
right.
a lot of, hang on, the advisory board has a lot of different committees. There's a marketing committee, a training committee, membership committee. There's like 5 committees. I'm sorry, I'm not coming up with them off the top of my head. We would love to have more volunteers to help with every single one of those committees. So depending on what your passion is, reach out to any one of us. Or I think everybody knows how to get a hold of at least one of us or anybody on the advisory board. And
Well, call CFI
yes,
direct,
CFI
right? I mean,
direct.
first
Call,
thing,
Well,
I mean,
call
just in
CFI.
terms of Facebook groups, go on Flooring
Right,
Installers of America and
Rod,
just
give
tag
him,
you, right?
Rod's
Yeah,
gonna give you.
there
I'll
is a
get it.
direct, we set up a direct mailbox for just the advisory board. Okay, so if you want to send us an email, you can send it to the advisory board at cfiinstallers.com. Tell us who you are, tell us what your interest is. One of us will get on the phone. We'll talk through what you'd like to be involved in, and see if we can't find you a home.
So that's if you are looking to talk to the advisory board. It might be good if you guys post this on your social sites on like how to get a hold of us. But a brand new person that is not, like they're just coming, they maybe got on this podcast and watched some conversation, and they've never been trained. Right. First step, call the home office. Right. Call the home office, say, hey, I want to get certified and I'm in Tuscaloosa, whatever. That's a good way to get started, is it?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, if we know there's somebody out there that's interested in training, we'll work with you to find a spot. Okay.
Yeah, it's them finding you is what I think Daniel was kind of
Yes.
asking. It could have been taken as a 2-part question for people who are already in the industry and kind of know CFI, but also people brand new to the industry, or they've been in the industry for a long time and they never heard of CFI. So in that case, how does that happen, and how does somebody who does know CFI but has an idea or something, then that would be reaching out to the advisory board. And could you mention that email address one more time?
Yeah, it's
Rod?
advisoryboard at cfiinstaller.com. Okay.
Very good.
I will speak to this as well. Is maybe not one of the priorities, but certainly it contributes to our goals. Is we are trying to enrich some of our relationships with the distributors. Now, how does that play into what Paul was just talking about? I'll give you an example. While we're having the convention in Nashville, every flooring distributor in the area will have a banner announcing we're in town, that we're putting on this. More of that type of marketing is going to be coming your way in the near future. We had a strong network of distributors. Some of that we lost because of all the consolidation in the industry. In some regards, we actually enhanced because a group like All Surfaces gobbled up a lot of smaller entities that we didn't have a relationship with. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on in this industry that the average guy probably doesn't witness, but it's out there, it's going on, and some of that will be to your benefit, and some of it you kind of need to be aware of because you may have to figure out how you're going to approach it in terms of business later on.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start to close this out. Want to just
Can we go for another 2 hours?
I mean, if you want to keep on going, I got like
be a record for the longest ever show.
I've got like 20 more questions if you want me to keep on going.
My wife might not agree with you.
I want to thank everybody for participating, and you guys for coming on, answering the questions, being willing to be dug into a little bit, and giving people a chance to really hear it from you, from CFI, on what's going on. I want to thank all the audience for all the participation. We didn't get to even all of the questions. It just kind of came in droves there off and on. So we tried to consolidate some of those. Please jump on, wherever you're consuming this. Give us some love, give us a thumbs up. Let us know what you want on topics coming up. Give us a like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We're lacking there and could use your help. So if you watch us on YouTube later and you make it to the 2 hour and 35-minute mark on
You might have to cut this one up, man.
then please like and subscribe it, because you deserve it, and so do we after 2 hours and 35 minutes. So again, thank you, everybody. I want to give a brief moment to each person to kind of give a closing statement. Let's start with you, Rod. You're the next one over.
Well, I'll say this. I think what makes CFI unique is our culture. It's the involvement, the volunteerism. It's having all these people that share their passion on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
How about you, Leslie?
I just want to thank everybody for, as much as seems like there's a lot of negativity out there. Honestly, it's just passion. And I appreciate passion. I think we have one of the most passionate memberships around, and you got to applaud it. It's who we are. And if we didn't love it so much, we wouldn't fight so hard for it.
Phillip.
I just want to end by saying we are CFI. If you want trainings, if you want things going on in your area, make it happen. CFI is the members. Anybody can do it. Let's keep moving forward.
Awesome. Roland?
Save me for the last again, huh? All right. First of all, I want to thank everybody that came on and asked questions. It was scary, thinking, okay, what's going to happen here? But the idea that we could come in and try to answer some of them for you, I know we didn't get them all answered, but we're reachable. Most people know how to PM us or get us, or go on the website, go and email the advisory board. But we just want to move forward and make things best for the installers. That's what we are. Thank you for the time. Daniel?
Absolutely. I think that one of the best things that you can do is get to convention and see everyone. A lot of these people, like we talked about Good Old Boys Club, and that it's closed off, but I mean, you guys welcomed us with open arms just in these past few years. So I definitely appreciate everything that you guys do and keep on doing for the industry, and it wouldn't be the same without you. So everyone that joined us today, thank you so much.
It's all about your mother, right?
She'll put anyone in their place.
That's right.
Jose.
She'll also just run you over with the Amigo too. She don't care.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you guys and everyone joining us and trying to shed some light on some of the difficult questions that might have come up early on and throughout this whole episode. But I'm going to leave with more curiosity. I think we should get some board members from the WFCA on here to answer some of those harder questions and to give a little bit of guidance and maybe insight as to why progression doesn't happen faster and why it's so hard for certain divisions of the WFCA to find and locate additional finances to help push forward. And why we can't come together with manufacturers and distributors to make it more beneficial for installers and to make it more obvious to installers the benefit of being trained and certified.
Well said. I'm going to leave with, I think that this was a really awesome podcast. I enjoyed every minute of it, and I just see a lot of love coming in at the end. And so regardless, kind of hearkening back to what you said, Leslie, it can be passion, but people love CFI. So keep doing the great work you guys do. Keep driving it forward. I hope this builds a fire in people to get involved and continues to stoke your guys' fire for building CFI and driving it forward. So thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you to the audience, and we will catch you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul and Daniel,
Thank
for
you.
the time.
Thank you.
N-